Hey everyone, welcome to my Espresso Live. I hope you're all well. Thanks for all the feedback and comments from last week. So this week, I wanted to touch on some of the big global recruitment trends that I've been noticing. It's the fourth quarter of the year. Clearly, so much has gone on this year, the last 18 months. So there's some big trends emerging, things I've noticed. And given the job I do, I speak to loads and loads of people every day. And so this is a kind of a real sense check, a little bit of what people are talking about, thinking, feeling. The stuff that they speak to me about is stuff that people don't want to discuss publicly a lot of the time. So we get some real good insights from people about what they're thinking and feeling around the world of work, recruitment, moving jobs, and all of that stuff. So I wanted to share some things. Also, I've done a bunch of polls this last year as well. So again, some of the results I've drawn on, and I've just thought through 5 key trends I've noticed. And some might be here to stay, some might be here for only a moment. One thing I've learned this past 18 months to 2 years is you never quite know. One or two things can change things massively. So one big thing is, being comfortable, being uncomfortable, being comfortable with change, things constantly moving and evolving, and how we respond to that and how we adapt. But these five things, I've tried to split it down. A couple like individuals, right? Like what's affecting us, what are people thinking and feeling about work, about jobs, and then I move on to the organization a little bit and just some of the things I'm noticing companies do and react. And I think just as a kind of macro, just to zoom out, it's a fundamental market shift going on right now at all levels, companies, individuals, what people want out of work, how they work, where they work, all of that stuff. Huge fundamental shift, and the horse is bolted, so to speak, on that. So for me, number one, for people really thinking about their well-being and their happiness. When people are thinking about, should I join a company now? For me, number one thing, culture. They want to work in a place that they feel valued, accepted. They could be themselves. It's a really cool vibe. They're vibing with everyone. This could be virtual or otherwise, clearly. But that's it. They want to be happy. Happiness is number one. I did a poll recently. If you've been in a job a few months, 4 or 5 months, and you're not happy, should you stick it out for a couple of years? Should you start looking for something else? And I think, maybe a couple of years ago, people have been like, stick it out. You don't want to make your CV look jumpy. Just see how it all goes. And clearly there's a lot of like complexity to the question. But what was that, 80 odd, 90% of people said, stick in your job, but keep looking, but start looking. Happiness is number one. It feeds into everything. If you're not happy, you're not doing your work well, and all of that stuff. So I've really seen people prioritize that. Connected with this, we've had so many stories of burnout. There's so much content online. There's a lot of people offering help around, burnout, well-being at work, a holistic view of work and life. Pre-COVID, it was, you live to work almost. Clearly, there's economics at play, right? I mean, you do need to make money. And so, there's a fundamental need to make money. But beyond that, people want other needs satisfied. And that's the happiness, feeling fulfilled, contributing. People are really thinking about that. And so they're thinking about, starting to anyway, nutrition, exercise, sleep. And you get all of those things right, and you can really perform well. There's always this like macho kind of culture of last in the office, working 1 million hours a day, and you do have to work hard to do well in life. So for sure, but you can pull in different aspects of your life. Like if your life is a pie, you need a bunch of different pieces to connect to really be your best self. And so people have been thinking a lot about that. Employees can offer stuff, around that. But as individuals, we need to take ownership of our lives, right? I talk a lot about being the CEO of your career, CEO of your life, thinking about getting all these pieces together. So anyway, really interesting that. And I've seen a lot of people think more and more about that. Number two for me is remote work. Clearly, we've been talking about this, sounds like forever. Pre-COVID, there was a lot of conversation around it. There was momentum building around letting people work more flexibly. And then suddenly we were forced to. There was no option. The door shut. Governments around the world said, stay at home for office-based workers. Clearly, whole swathes of society have to go to work. NHS workers or hospital workers, delivery drivers, all of these amazing services that kept the world running over COVID. And so all of these people had to go to work and did an amazing job. The conversation around remote work, remember, is clearly for those of us lucky enough to be able to choose, right? And if you're able to choose, then you're able to think about this debate. And if you look at well, I'm in London, so if I think about London and from speaking to people in other major cities, it's still super quiet, and there's this real conversation around fully hybrid, fully remote, back in the office. City of London is really, really very quiet. Some people come in some days a week, and most people I speak to, on average, companies and individuals are talking about something like 3 days a week to come back. But we'll see. There's some companies that have gone fully remote and are doing well, attracting individuals that want to do that. Others are talking about going back 5 days a week. Probably 3 days a week is going to be where we land. But then you have big companies that own real estate that want people back. It's really affecting city centres, retail, all of those things. I mean, it's amazing, how much quieter the city still is in London and other major cities as well. So it'll be interesting to see where that lands. I think it's gone now, right? Like people have been used to working at home now, and not everyone's suited to working fully at home. And so personally, for me, it's a balance, and I quite like getting out, commuting, walking, moving. My mind's better. I'm more alert. I enjoy getting out. But people are used to being at home. Their home is where they work, where they live, where they work, where they earn, where they sleep, where they feed. All of that stuff. So it's all encompassing now, and it's really altered people's view, I think, of home and work life, and people are starting to think about a bit more of a balance between work and home. So it'll be interesting to see where that lands. I think the lesson for me, and the real trend, I think, for me, is that companies should treat people like individuals. Not everything works for everyone, and so as you're speaking to people, if you're trying to hire people, even if you're looking, if you're interviewing for a new company, find out how they treated their employees over lockdown, over the pandemic. What did they do? What are their plans now? Are they mandating? Are they letting people choose? What's the vibe? Different things suit different people. And you have to arrive at something like that. You arrive at the right place for you. As a company, you've got to do what's right for you. So that's interesting, and that will only continue, I think. Number three for me, employers, and this is globally, are facing huge talent shortages at all levels. It's crazy. They've called it in America the big resignation. I've heard the word the big rehire banded around, and at all levels, companies are really struggling to find people. I mean, if we think about the tech industry, hop online, any tech startup, growth firm, large company. I mean, go to their job site, the jobs page on their career site. I mean, there's like loads and loads of vacancies. Loads of people are hiring, and this is entry level, mid level, skilled, unskilled workers, management, leadership roles. A lot of people globally are finding it really hard to find the right people. So yeah, it's interesting, right? And then what does that mean for individuals? Look at these jobs, and if you want to refocus, retrain, think about what are the high in demand jobs. And so there's a lot in tech, data science, and things like that. That could be a podcast for another day. But the big trend is companies are really struggling to find the right talent, which means jobs are staying open longer. Projects they want to do, if they're not staffed up properly, it will take longer, will start later. So there's a lot of knock-on effects to it. But interestingly, the other thing, and this is my fourth trend, is you've got an interesting position here. We have companies with jobs that are staying open longer and they can't find the right people, but we still have quite high unemployment globally, right? Still a lot of people out of work. Many reasons for it, but if you want to, as a company, as a society, we want to make sure we do a really good job at retraining people, training people, advising people on things that they need to start to learn, develop. What are the areas that they should be going into? And so I think we all have a really important job to do about making sure that we educate people and advise them and retrain them, and so we can start matching people up with the vacant jobs. Super, super important. My fifth trend is employers now are starting to realize, and they're starting to react. These jobs have stayed open longer. They're finding it hard to attract people. You've seen salary inflation, big demand for people. Salaries have started to go up. You've seen companies offer sign-on bonuses, upping salaries. So there's a real competition now. I don't like the word war for talent, so I won't say war for talent, although I've just said it. But certainly competition. And what you have is you've got staff leaving for bigger salaries. You've got companies hiring people in for larger salaries. You've got current employees saying, hold on a second, how come this person has got 20, 30% more than me? And you've got this real interesting conversation. And I hear it a lot from people when I'm speaking to them about their careers, next steps and things like that. And this comes up quite often. Still culture number one. But certainly employers are starting to react now, and they've got to do things. And so, the salaries and remuneration, clearly one thing. But think about their culture. Simon Sinek has a great quote that says, if your employees don't love your company first, your customers will never love your company. Something like that. I probably described it horribly, but you get the point. You need to focus on making sure that your team are super happy. If you get culture right, people won't really want to leave unless there's a huge push or pull. You get the culture right, you value people, you treat them like humans, and you treat them well, kind, considerate, nice, think about them, then you're going to do a great job at keeping your talent, and you'll get, it will also really help to attract people. So a lot of people are focusing on that. Employees are realizing and they're reacting. And the other thing linked to this is interview process. And you hear all the time, right? Ghosting, interview processes take too long. I had a friend of mine, I posted this story on LinkedIn actually. She got a chief marketing officer job and the company hired her within 2 weeks. It was like 3 amazing interviews. They knew she was the one and they pounced, offered her the job, perfect fit for each other. She then called up another company that she was in an interview process for. I think it was like six interviews or something and counting over like an 8-week period. She called them up and she said, look, thank you so much. I've just got an offer from another job. I'm going to withdraw from the interview process. And they were super surprised. They're like, hold on a sec. You've invested 8 weeks, in this interview process. We've invested loads of time. Why are you pulling out? Don't you want to just wait to the end? And she's like, hey, you don't get it. If it takes you this long to decide who to hire, what's it going to be like when we're actually working together? How long does it take to make decisions? My experience has not been very good, So companies are thinking a lot about the candidate experience, and they're thinking about how to structure a good interview process. You clearly need to do your due diligence on people as you ask them to join your organization. You also have to remember that interviewing is a two-way process. Candidates are interviewing you, you're interviewing them. And you need to give candidates the space and time to ask the questions they need to find out what they want to find out. And so when you kind of get that, and companies are starting to realize this, and the good ones have realized it, others are catching up, you get to a good point. And now more than ever, and hey, look, things change, right? Pendulum might swing the other way. But in an environment of real competition for talent shortages, people really thinking about how and where they're working. Getting this right as employers is massively important. Final thing that's been really interesting for me, and we do senior leadership roles across the Europe, North America. There's so many companies are saying to us, we don't really mind where the role is based, which is really interesting. So I know we might be looking for a European CFO, and they don't mind which country it's based in, or in North America, we were looking for a global head of talent. They didn't really mind which city, where it was, and which is great because it's opened up talent pools for companies, so more options, more diversity, better talent, better selection, better hire, all of those things. And so that's been a really interesting trend, which clearly linked to remote work, driven by COVID, which is interesting. So they're my 6. Hope you found them useful. If you want me to zero in on anything particular, drop me a DM. I'm going to be doing lots of different little espressos regularly. So hope you enjoyed it. Have a good one.